half hour in, we pick out pocket fives in the small blind. The middle position player is a good pro from Andorra. This is not made up, he's actually from Andorra. He raises to 30. I call, we're heads up out of position. The flop comes Jack, Jack 5 with 2 spades. We've got a boat full of the jacks and 5 and we're going straight to Motown. I check. The opponent, who initially told me he's from Spain for fear that I wouldn't know where Andorra was, down bets to 20. Well, he was correct. I had no clue where Andorra is located. I call to locate the 4th 5. The turn is the 9 of clubs. I check again. Come on, Andorran, please bet. He does. He goes with a large sizing of 100. The opponent is representing a strong hand like trip jacks. Let's see if that's what he's really got. I raise to 300 to target what he's at least representing to have. He may still be able to call if he has a strong draw. There's a lot of money in the pot now. If I win it, I'll probably have to move somewhere that has tax haven status, somewhere like maybe Andorra. Ultimately, the opponent folds. This was actually the second time I flopped a set or better with a pocket pair today, but the first pot was small and doesn't make the cut. We pick up pocket 10s an hour into the session. I raise to 30 from under the gun. The opponent calls from the hijack. The big blind calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes 10-6-3 with 2 clubs. We flop set number 3 after just 60 minutes of playing. The big blind checks with 2 opponents. One of them is likely to have a piece. I bet 60. There are a number of draws out there. Every card from a deuce to a 9 that doesn't pair the board completes at least one straight possibility. The hijack folds. The big blind doesn't believe that we've got the goods. He calls. With most of the 10s accounted for, he probably has a draw or a 6. The turn is the 8 of spades, allowing 9-7 to get there. The big blind checks. While one unlikely straight drills the turn, we need to bet before additional bad cards come out on the river. I make it 140 to go. Even if we get raised, we can call or re-raise. Instead, the opponent folds. It's another small to medium-sized pot that doesn't do too much for us. We need something more exciting. Pocket 10s isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion. I mean, pocket aces in the small blind. We're going to look to make $1 billion with them as the under the gun player raises to 30. There's been a lot of shuffling in the main games, causing our must move to get short. It's only 5-handed at the moment. I 3-bet to 120. People have to fight harder for pots when it's short-handed, so I may get called or 4-bet lighter than usual. Under the gun calls for 90 more. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 10-8-3 with 2 clubs. I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, we at least have an overpair, which will often be the case with aces. On the other hand, it's a connected board with 2 clubs, and we don't have the ace of clubs. I bet 140. Could be up against some sets and some overpairs, hands containing a 10, maybe some flush draws, maybe just ace-king with 1 club. The opponent calls. I don't mind the action, but I'd really like to see a blank. The turn is the 10 of clubs, pairing the board and completing the flush draw. It's the worst card in the deck. I check. This gets checked back. I'll feel relatively good about the strength of our hand. The opponent doesn't play nice. He grabs chips and bets 200 like a bully. That's not enough to chase us off. While we could be drawing slim, there's still some chance that we have the best hand. I call to fight the good fight. We didn't check to fold. The river is the jack of diamonds. It's another card that isn't great because now we're losing to pocket jiggities. I check to the opponent. I'd expect him to check back with queen jack suited that didn't make a flush, and he may possibly give up on some of his bluffs. He likes the idea of having bets on all 3 streets. He makes it 450. This isn't a fun spot to be in at all. I played this passively on the turn in the river. We're slightly under-repped. What do we beat though? We beat hands like ace-king or ace-queen offsuit containing only 1 club. That might be it. In the past, one of my biggest problems has been that when I face a river bet, I'll think of 1 or 2 combos of hands that aren't all that likely, then I'll use those holdings I've come up with to justify calling a big bet. I'm often wrong and end up paying people off at too high of a frequency. Everything got there on the turn and the situation got slightly worse on the river. I'm trying to play better. We just need to make the discipline lay down. Alright, I'm gonna make a big fold here. Want to show the bluff? Show the bluff for the vlog?
No bluff.
Jack 7 of clubs? Oh, thanks man. Appreciate you showing. I'd pocket aces. No club. The opponent is nice enough to show that we made the correct fold. He turned to flush with Jack 7 of clubs. Why he made the 3-bet call pre-flop is still unknown. He may have been after some Bradley dollars. We get switched to one of the main games when we pick up Queen Jack offsuit on the button. The woman on our right limps in for 10. There's an old saying in my family that goes back maybe thousands of years. It's, limpers must be punished. I raise to 40 to isolate the cutoff and ideally win this pre-flop or make the pot bigger while we have a decent hand in position. The cutoff calls for 30 more. We're heads up. The flop comes queen 6-4 with 2 spades. We've got top pair and a backdoor flush draw. The opponent value bets $40 for me. Nice of her to do that. It's very rare that anyone leads into the pre-flop aggressor with a hand like top or better. This type of play is usually done with a draw or a weaker one pair hand from someone who's afraid that the pre-flop aggressor may bet larger and exert more pressure than they're comfortable with. I don't take this bet as a sign of strength. I take it as an invitation to raise. I bump it up to 110. Often, opponents will fold after getting raised, and they'll be content telling themselves that they bet to see where they were at and they got their answer, not the cutoff. She calls for 70 more. Maybe she has a better hand than I thought. Or maybe she's still on a draw or just doesn't believe that we've got top pair. The turn is the deuce of diamonds. It's very unlikely to have changed anything, even though 5-3 makes a straight. The cutoff checks. If we had king-queen or better, I'd definitely bet again after our flop raise got called. Queen-jack is very borderline, but I still think we're ahead since we probably would have gotten a re-raise on the flop if the opponent had 2 pair or better at that point. I bet 200 to charge flush draws or hands like 6-5. The cutoff takes a good amount of time to consider her options, doing very little to conceal that she genuinely seems to not know if she should call or fold. I don't get the sense that she's contemplating a raise. Finally, she calls. This is a pretty big pot for the strength of our hands since we've been doing the opposite of pot controlling. The river is the 3 of hearts, 4 to the straight are on board. The opponent checks. We could be beat, and I'm not sure if we can get called by worse. I check back. The opponent turns her cards face up to reveal that she has a queen. Her other card is hidden though. The dealer gives us some assistance as she spreads the cards. We've got the opponent outkicked with our jack. We make close to the maximum and win a fairly large pot. We were down almost 500 after we had to fold the aces. This pot gets us closer to the even mark. A few hands later, we've got pocket eights under the gun +1. I raised to 30. I've been active since arriving to the main game. Some of the regulars don't appreciate it. One of them's in the small blind. He 3-bets to 120. Our hand is certainly good enough to hang in there with. I call for 90 more to set mine. We've already flopped 2 sets and a full house today. The dealer puts out 8-7-6 rainbow. We've got top set again. The small blind doesn't care that this flop smashes our range and connects with our actual hand. He bets 140. Such a connected board, I'm not going to slow play this. I raised to 400. Some of the players at the table have made comments about how often I've been getting involved. Primarily it's been the opponent in this hand referencing it. He may think that I'm bullying people around without actually having strong hands. Some of the time, it was folded pre-flop without me revealing what I had. This type of dynamic could lead to me getting called or even re-raised light. The small blind appears to have air. He folds quickly. We win another pot, and this one gets us back over the even mark for the day. That's where we'll hopefully stay. We pick up pocket aces in the cutoff with the straddle on. This is set up perfectly for us since the straddler is the person we need to get revenge against. I raise to 60. At first it appears that we might not get any customers. The big blind changes that. He calls. The under the gun straddler calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes king 7-4 with 2 clubs. It's unlikely that we're up against 2 pair because it's not a very connected board. As long as we're not up against a set, we should be in the clear. Checks to me. We have the ace of clubs, so there aren't as many flush draws that our opponents will have either. I bet 120 to recover as much money from the under the gun player as I can from when the 9's lost to his 5-4 offsuit. The big blind folds. Under the gun calls. I doubt he has bottom pair, so in my head I root for one more 4 to come out, and the dealer puts out the 4 of diamonds. Now if the opponent has a king, he doesn't have any 2 pair outs that'll be good. Under the gun checks. He tends to not like folding. I go with a sturdy sizing of 250. The under the gun player might be starting to suspect that we've got something good as he's taking a little longer to ponder his decision. The extra time doesn't help him. He makes a bad call. This has turned into a big pot. Let's put out the jack of diamonds one time. The river is another king. The flush and straight draws miss, but every flopped pair other than 7s is improved to a full house. Under the gun checks. If he has a missed draw, he won't be able to call a bet anyway. I check back, telling him that I probably have him beat. I reveal our pocket aces rather than make the opponent show first because he didn't seem like he had much. He shows his 5 of spades in this shot. I assume he had 6-5 for a busted straight draw.
Whoa! Just aces.
Just aces.
Hot seat over there.
It is a hot seat. We win a large pot to be up 250 on the day. We pick up pocket deuces in middle position. While this episode's nemesis is straddled again, I raise to 60. The straddler can't pass up an opportunity to play a pot with me. Perhaps he has revenge mode activated. He calls for 40 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes queen 7 deuce all hearts. We've got another set. It's not all that great of a situation with 3 hearts on board though. The opponent checks. Can't allow him to see a free card. I bet 40. The opponent folds immediately. It's my 5th set today. Thank you. We've made quite a few big hands, but haven't won too many big pots. Sometimes that's just how it goes when you have everything.